Welcome back, my friends, to PMP Exam Fast Track. This is where we're going to put everything together in one pretty bow. So we've gone through people, process, and business at a very high level. Now I'm going to show you some intricacies of detail and how to think. Get a paper and pen because it's going to go by very quickly, okay? Contrary to what a lot of people think, the PMP exam is not based on a PMBOK. It's not based on one book. It's based on the PMP exam content outline. The PMP exam content outline, you can find it. It's free. Just search for it and you'll find a PDF. And those are the things that the PMI expects you to do as a project manager, okay? So on top of that, to better understand the PMI philosophy, I always recommend understand the secret sauce in PMBOK 7 principles. So I'm first of all going to go over the way of thinking, okay? The mindset. It's embodied in PMI principles. So I'll endeavor to put a link to this document, but if you just search for 12 principles of project management PMI, Google it, and you'll find this PDF. So let's go through them one by one. Number one, it said stewardship. You got to be a diligent, caring, and respectful steward. That's number one. Number two is you got to bring the team synergies out. It says simply, project teams are made up of individuals who wield diverse skills, knowledge, and experience. Project teams that can work collaboratively can accomplish a shared objective. So you got to be thinking team. Next, you got to think stakeholders to engage them. Next, you got to think about value. If it's valuable, do it. If it's not valuable, don't do it. Then you need to be a systems thinker to see how all the moving parts add up together to that cohesive big picture view. You got to be able to think systemically and strategically. Next is leadership. You got to be able to lead. You got to be a servant leader. You got to be a decisive leader. Next, we have tailoring. You got to tailor the processes to the project. Next, we have quality. You need to have a quality mindedness, fitness for use, conformance to requirements, customer satisfaction, and Kaizen. Next, you got to be aware of complexity. Complexity has to be tackled. It has to be managed. Complexity can be managed by being agile. So you got to navigate complexity. Next, risk. Always look for the best risk outcome, whether it's positive risks, negative risks, makes no difference. You got to choose the best outcome. Next is adaptability and resiliency. Adaptability just means being agile. Resiliency, I call it bounce back ability, to be able to bounce back. And that could mean you've built in enough redundancy into your systems, your process, your procedure, your thought, as far as a solution is concerned. And lastly, we have change. You got to enable change. Some people stay in the way of change, but we got to enable change to achieve the envisioned future state. So it's a mindedness. And those are the 12 principles of project management talked about in this document, 12 principles of project management, which you can find from PMI. Finally, my friends, going back to the talk about the PMP exam content outline, it's broken into people, process, and business. And my recommendation for you is to hone in on these and to test yourself across people, process, and business domains. People has 14 tasks, process has 17 tasks, and business has 4 tasks. And the good news is if you go to pmpdoctor.com, you can sign up to take quizzes that will test you on each one of these tasks. And I'm talking about pretty rigorous quizzes. So each task has a quiz that's about 6 questions long. And by the time you have done all 35, you've pretty much done a PMP mock exam. But it's broken down into chunks of 6 apiece. Okay, so go to PMP Doctor. If you mean business, my friends, pmpdoctor.com. We will test you on all of these tasks and make sure you're ready for the exam. But let's jump into the domains very quickly. So, domain number 1, the people domain. This is all about conflict, number one, right? You got to be able to manage conflict. Remember in the beginning, when we first started this discussion, I talked about the Thomas Kilmann conflict mode instrument. You got to know that stuff. Number two is all about leadership. You got to lead the team. Okay. Number three is all about supporting the team members' performance. And in order to do that, you got to give them good feedback. You got to set them up for success. Number four is empowerment. My mentor, John Maxwell, he would say only secure leaders give power to others. You got to empower the team. You got to empower stakeholders. You got to stop standing in the way of, well, I got to be there when you're meeting with stakeholder X. No, give your team members power. Right? So it's a mindedness. And it says organize around team strength. It's a no-brainer, right? Number five is all about training. Ensure team members and stakeholders are adequately trained. Number six, you got to build the team. 5 stages of team development. You got to put on that hat. Forming, storming, norming, performing on a journey. Number seven, you got to negotiate project agreements. And you can negotiate anything. It doesn't have to be money, right? Negotiation doesn't always mean money, even though that's important, right? Number eight. Oh, I skipped one. I beg your pardon. Number seven. That's a very important one. Number eight is negotiate project agreements. But number seven is address and remove impediments, obstacles and blockers. That's your job as a project manager. Number nine is you got to collaborate with the stakeholders. Remember what it said in the Agile Manifesto, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, right? Number 10, build a shared understanding. Understanding. Okay, that comes from transparency and dialogue. Number 11, engage and support virtual teams. Virtual teams. You got to do what is necessary to keep these folks engaged. Use the right tools, use the right techniques to keep them engaged. Number 12, define team ground rules. I just say ground rules. Ground rules live in the team charter. We also talk about having a social contract. You know, the word social contract, it sounds a bit foreboding, but it really just means a team charter. So you should have a team charter. You should be able to define with the team the do's, the don'ts, the acceptable behaviors, things that you agree to. And this is done even in the world of agile or predictive, makes no difference. All right, number 13, engage and support. Oh, I beg your pardon. That's number 12. Number 13, mentor relevant stakeholders. Mentoring and coaching. Mentoring is when you pretty much tell him what to do based on experience. Coaching is when you're asking meaningful questions to get the answer from within the client. And number 14, it just says promote team performance through the application of EI. Here's my synopsis of how you can get people studied. Now that you've been through this program and you understand where all of the treasure is buried, spend a day on each task. In 2 weeks, you'll be done. Hops. For those of you who are in your last run, this could be done, taking 2 or 3 a day. You'll be done in 2 days max. And then you move on to the process domain. Okay, process domain, we went pretty good into that table, so all of this will make sense. All right, task 1 is execute. Execute with urgency. Execute urgency, right? To deliver business value. It's kind of like, our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery. So you got to execute urgently because maybe your customer's future depends on it. Your customer's now depends on it. So don't waste time. Get value and, pump that value into the organization so that it will survive. It's a mindset. Task 2 is manage communications. I'll just say comms. Task 3 is assess and manage risk. We talked about risk. Remember? You got 5 approaches to negative risk, 5 approaches to positive risk. So for negative risk, I don't know if you remember A team, avoid, transfer, escalate, accept, mitigate. And for the positive, it's escalate, accept, share, exploit, and enhance, right? This is for positive. Positive risk responses. I beg your pardon. Negative is the first one. Negative risk responses, and this one is for positive, right? So we didn't really go into too much of that, but that is covered in the Elite PMP course and obviously in the questions on PMP Doctor. All right, number 4, engage stakeholders. So we've already gone through all this stuff in that big old table, so you understand we identify stakeholders, plan the engagement, manage the engagement, and we monitor the engagement. So you remember that. Number 5 is plan and manage budget. Budget and just say resources. Number 6, plan and manage schedule. We talked about plan schedule management, define activities, sequence activities, estimate activity durations, develop schedule, control schedule, all that stuff. It's now coming back to remind you. All right, number 7, plan and manage quality of products / deliverables. So this is quality management, plan quality management, manage quality, which is like quality assurance, checking the process, control quality, which is checking the product by inspection, signing off before it goes to the client. Number 8, plan and manage scope. What do we do in scope? Plan scope management, collect requirements, define scope, create WBS, validate scope, control scope. You got to be remembering these things, my friends. Number 9 is integrate project planning activities, right? Integrate project planning activities. So that's like a development of the project management plan. All right, do we get it all? Number 10, manage changes. I'm going to need more space here. I'll just say change. Okay. Number 11, plan and manage procurement. So when it comes to change, remember you could get higher level change or lower level change. When it's the lower level change and you get a verbal change request, that's not enough. You got to ask for it in formal writing in a change form. That change form then gets put into a change log. That change log then gets reviewed. The change request gets reviewed by the team. The team decides what should be done with the change request based on their experience. They communicate that to the CCB. They send the change request and their recommendation to the CCB. The CCB review it and they decide what will be done. There could be some back and forth with customers and stakeholders, but ultimately the CCB must make a decision, approve, reject, on hold, pending, whatever they decide to do. The team then takes that thing. If it's a go, then they go ahead and do it. If it's a no-go, then it's documented in the change log. Whatever the fate of the change request, the change log is always updated and it's communicated and shared with stakeholders. So there's a process, there's a flow, right? Sometimes we have things in pending status till we get additional information or clarity. All right, number 12, manage project artifacts. Do you remember your artifacts from Scrum, product backlog, sprint backlog, increment, or from the world of predictive? There's so many baselines, subsidiary plans, documents, and the like. Number 13, determine the appropriate project methodology. I'm just going to say methodology. You got to determine when to use an agile approach, when to use more like a traditional approach, or when to be hybrid. Number 14, establish project governance. I'm just going to say governance. Okay, governance is a framework within which authority is exercised. Number 15, manage project issues. So we talked about risks, I'll just say issues. We talked about risk, an uncertain event that if it happens can impact the project positively or negatively. But an issue is something that has happened. So there's a difference between how you handle both. You got to put them in the issue log and you got to decide how to resolve them. A lot of times it's meetings, it's collaborating with team members, it's brainstorming, it's using things like Ed DeBono's 6 thinking hats. And if in the real world you're trying to solve these issues or problems and you don't have a framework, you need to get my book at digciv, digciv.com. Go to digciv.com, pick up that book because I have a framework, digciv, that helps you with problem solving. You first of all define the problem, and I have many tools I talk about in this book to define the problem, to identify the root cause, to generate alternatives, to choose the best alternative, and then to implement it. I go through all that in digciv.com. All right. Number 16. Number 16 is ensure knowledge transfer. So I'll just say knowledge, no TR, knowledge transfer. You got to ensure knowledge transfer for project continuity. And number 17, it just says plan and manage project or phase closure and transition. So I'll just say close. You got to manage that closure. All right, my friends, are you seeing how it's all stacking up? Again, you can take the process domain and you can hit one a day. Now think about it. If you're hitting one a day, you got 14 there, you got 17 there, you're just a little bit over a month. But if you follow the rigor in pmpdoctor.com, which has got all those quizzes, you're going to be able to strike off each one and say, yeah, I got it, I understand it, I know where this is going. And at the end of it all, we have a mock exam, another full set of new questions for you to take. We have 2 mock exams, and we have all of these itsy bitsy onesie twosie questions. So by the time you get done with pmpdoctor.com, you would have firmed up your understanding. Okay? Let's go to the final one. The final one is business environment. Number 1 is plan and manage compliance. You gotta understand, are we in compliance? If we're not, what is the risk? What is the penalty? Such and such. Number 2, evaluate and deliver project benefits and value. Ben and Val, 2 friends. Ben and Val, benefits and value. Okay. Next one that we have here after benefits and value is number 3, evaluate and address the external business environment changes for impact on scope. So I'll just say external ENV, external business environment changes. And number 4 is support organizational change. Org change. You got to support organizational change, understand how the project affects the firm, and understand how the firm affects the project. I hope you found value from this, my friends. We've been going for the past half a day. That's a long time. So well done if you've stayed this long. I look forward to hearing great news of your success. Take on each one a day, and before you know it, in 31 days, up 30, 35 days, you'll be done. I also have a curriculum, which, by the way, has videos that can supplement what we're going through now. And you can find that at pmp.pmradio.org. If you go to pmp.pmradio.org, you can sign up. Well, not sign up. You can watch for free. You no need to sign up because it's on YouTube. I have about 40 to 50 hours of free video that go over each one of these. So if you follow me for 35 days, watching each day, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and it's free. I also have this in a podcast, and the podcast is study dot pmradio.org. So pmp.pmradio.org is the videos, study.pmradio.org is the podcast, and honestly, you have all the resources. I even ask you questions every day and ask you to answer them. So you have so much stuff. There's actually no excuse anymore. I wish you all the very best as you prepare. Smash that like button if you haven't already. And I really wish you all the best. Just keep checking the channel, the Praise Your Own channel. My Instagram is Project Management Coach, the handle at Project Management Coach. And you see me all over social media. Just find me on LinkedIn as well. Okay. I wish you all the very best. This has been a journey for me for the past 2 decades. I got certified in 2005. This makes it 20 years. See, so I ain't playing games. I need you to be certified. Carry the torch on. Keep doing great stuff in the world of project management, but you got to get certified first. We got to get you to be a PMP. You understand what I'm saying? We got to get you to be a PMP. And I know you can do it. You just got to daily hit those things. All right. Thank you very much, my friends. I'll see you soon. Bye for now. Well, before we go, now is a very good time for you to send in any questions because I know some of you might have questions that have gone untackled because this exam is quite a behemoth. It's quite big. And as a result of its size, you know, we we normally have questions that go unanswered. So if you have any questions, now is a very good time. I've got a few questions for you though. Have you read this book? If you have not read this book, I want to encourage you to read it. It's the Agile Practice Guide. PMI have their own secret sauce when it comes to Agile, especially pages 91 to 95. You want to make sure that you tackle those. Okay, that's the first book. The second book that I tackled today very quickly is this one. It's called PMBOK Guide 7th edition. Now, the 7th edition has the principles in it. If you are going to choose anything to read from this book, I would say definitely read the principles. If you've not read any PMBOK guide ever, perhaps glancing through the domains wouldn't hurt. But to be quite honest, my ideal PMBOK guide, especially for the predictive piece, would be this. Okay, so I would choose this over this. So the summary is this. The two books that I recommend that you read for the PMP exam, if you really wanted to read any books from PMI, would be these two. It would be these two. These two are good, very robust, very wholesome. I know a lot of people are saying don't read this anymore, but I beg to differ. I've been scouring social media and I've found a lot of people are still reading those two and attributing the PMBOK 6 and the Agile Practice Guide to their success. So if you read those two, you won't go wrong. Okay. So over the past number of episodes, so many episodes we have covered. And if you haven't watched the episodes, go onto YouTube. But we've covered the people domain. We cleaned it all out. The process domain. I covered the 49 processes. I covered Scrum. I covered the world of Agile. We went into the business domain. And then we covered everything all together in this episode. And this is a final opportunity for you to ask any questions about the exam, about how things work. If there are no questions, let me end by reminding you of the exam, what the exam is going to test you on. The exam is going to test you on logic. It'll test you on some knowledge, but it's not centered on the knowledge. It's centered on the logic, which means you need to know how to tackle problems. And that's why today I'm going to work with you on getting a problem solving approach. So it's not over. I see some of you taking off. Don't take off. Let's see who came through on Instagram. Which of you came through on Instagram? T-Wo Baby. That's the only person who came through on Instagram today. Well, thank you for coming through, but it's not over. I know some people have thought, okay, end of class. No, it's not the end. We're just getting warmed up, my friend. Because the most important piece is what I mentioned towards the end. I mentioned Dixiv, right? So let me walk you through a problem solving approach. And this is an approach you can use on any PMI exam, any exam, which means it's pure gold. So don't you go. I'm going to show you how to think. There's a difference between the mindset versus the thought process, the thinking process. So let's jump into my whiteboard here. I'm going to show you the thinking process for any exam whatsoever. Don't go away because you're going to love this. For those of you that haven't seen it prior. Okay. So welcome to the land of Digciv, Digciv. I'm going to show you my special problem solving mantra for any PMI exam. So when you get a question that says you're a project manager on a project, you've been managing a lot of money, a lot of schedule, a lot of budget. All of a sudden your schedule has slowed down and you're behind schedule. What should you do first? Should you crash? Should you fast track? Should you do a cause and effect analysis? Should you update the risk register? I'm wondering what you're going to say about that. Well, if you chose anything other than a cause and effect, it's wrong. Why is that? Because you need to understand what is causing the problem. You don't just jump at crashing or fast tracking or update the risk register. Well, it's not even a risk. It's a reality. It's now an issue. You get what I'm saying? So you have to begin to think like this. D, that's for define the problem. Define it. Defining a problem could be, okay, we're late. We're late is not the same as I. Identify why you are late. Identify the root cause. You see the mindset here, my friends, when you're solving problems? You got to really define that problem and then identify the root cause. And it could be a number of causes, but you need to understand why we're late. You could be late because a government official has not reviewed a document. You could be late because a team member dropped the ball. You could be late because you need more resources. Perhaps one of the solutions to the lateness problem could be doing things in parallel, but you don't know except you are told. And if you're not told, don't be presumptuous and choose crashing or fast tracking. The PMI, they're very good at putting shiny objects all throughout your exam. So the shiny object syndrome, right? You could find yourself going down a blind alley to choose what looks appealing, but it may not be the best answer. After you have identified the root cause of a problem, the next step is for you to generate alternatives. And when you're taking the PMP exam, if you've trained yourself sufficiently well, by the time you get to identifying the root cause, your brain has already kicked into gear, recommending possible reasons why that thing is happening. You get what I'm saying? Possible reasons. And you need to train yourself as you're reading questions to almost, as it were, think in tandem. So you're reading and you're processing so quick that it seems as though you're doing both together, but it's really in iterations because you don't have two brains, but your brain flips between reading, comprehending, coming up with solutions, reading, comprehending, coming up with solutions. So by the time you get to generate alternatives, your brain's already gone ahead and done some work. And then when you see PMI's alternatives, what you need to do at this point is to choose. This is where you will see choose. This is the most difficult part of the PMP exam. Choose the, you got it, best. You got to choose that best alternative. Choose the best alternative. Very, very hard to do, except you've trained yourself to do it. And choosing the best alternative, you know how it goes on the PMP exam. Let's deviate for a quick second. On the PMP exam, you have A, B, C, and D. Now, on the exam, under most circumstances, what they want you to do is choose one. But in some rare cases, you may have to choose two. Now, the fact that it's a multiple choice exam actually makes it a little bit easy, believe it or not. Because it's a multiple choice exam, you could use the poll. I'm not talking about the police, I'm talking about the process of elimination. So, the process of elimination, if you didn't know it was B and D, right, you could eliminate A and C. And once you've done that, the poll method is going to help you understand this is the right one, this is the right one. And that's why on some exams, instead of going from top down, looking at A, B, C, D, you know what I do? I start from D, C, B, A, because it trains me to consider everything. Don't just jump at A or B. Go through everything. All right. So this is what I'm teaching you here is the mindedness to answer questions on the PMP exam. Okay, or any exam. This is how to answer questions on any test. Now, when you've chosen the best alternative in your mind's eye, you have to implement. In the real world, you will actually be able to do this in problem solving, but on the exam, you have to test, validate your reasoning. So you go through it mentally and say, does this solve the problem? So, what are you implementing? The alternative. But what exactly should you do while you are considering this on the exam? Let me show you the number of litmus test questions. And some of the litmus test questions are as follows. Does this solve the real problem? That's a big question that you got to ask. Is this presumptuous? Is this in line with the PMBOK 7 principles and agile manifesto values and principles? You got to ask these questions. You also have to ask, does this make logical sense? Does this make process order sense? It's like someone saying, well, you got to develop a project charter before you work on a business case. Of course, you know that's wrong, right? So you got to ask, does it make sense in the flow of things? Okay. And that's, where the benefit of reading your PMBOK guide comes in, because you got to know your project charter comes first before developing the project management plan, or the business case comes first before the project charter, or the needs assessment comes first before the project charter, right? Needs assessment, business case, benefits management plan, project charter, project management plan. But in between, you've got a stakeholder register. These are some of the things you have to consider. So part of your implementing is a sanity check, right? We can say that implement the alternative is code for your final sanity check. And when I train this, a lot of people are like, but Phil, we only have 1 minute, 15 seconds on the exam. And I'm like, yeah, your brain, if you train it, it can answer questions in a lot less time than that and still go through every step. So if you think about it, you have 75 seconds on every question. We've already done five things. You can't afford to spend 10 seconds on each one of these. These have to be very quick, which means you have to be answering a lot of questions on your test run up. You see, I know a lot of you are pounding on the study hall, and honestly, it is the repetition that is seeing you through because you're training your brain to be quick. Don't feel that the questions are worth the salt that they're around. They're really not. Questions are not that great. But what is great is your process for being a repetitive test taker of those study hall questions. That's really what's kicking in. So when you get to the exam and you see questions that are so far removed from study hall, they're easier and they're more sensible. Why is that? Because PMI pours more resources into the real exam and the crummy little study hall. So don't get bent out of shape thinking that, oh, it's going to be exactly like that. No, it's not. It might be long, right? Some of the questions might be long, but what is going to make you pass the exam is the repetition. Your brain is now being trained to define, identify, even though no one's taught you those steps, but now you know the steps, you can now figure out how your brain is thinking. How did I arrive at that answer? Sometimes I ask my students, how do you arrive at that answer? And, they're like, oh, I don't know. But when I show them this, they're like, it was in the implement that I knew my initial answer was not right. One other thing that I do with the implement alternatives part that helps a lot of people on the exam. In fact, if you look on YouTube, let me see if I can find it. One of my students was taking the exam, and it's very very interesting. Let's see if we can find it. Let's type in Anne Prazion. Think we'll find her lessons learned if we look hard enough. Maybe I'll come back to this towards the end. But Anne took the PMP exam and she had, let me give you the breakdown of what happened. She had 40 questions and 10 minutes because this is a very fascinating occurrence. Can you put yourself in this position? 40 questions, 10 minutes. Just search the Prazion channel when you get a minute for Anne's lessons learned. You'll probably find her lessons learned. But can you imagine having 40 questions in 10 minutes and still passing the PMP exam? Do you know what she did? She used the PO method. She used the PO, process of elimination. Just that, just the process of elimination to answer almost a quarter of the questions. Can you imagine that? 40 questions in 10 minutes. It's pretty sick. So when you think about the implement the alternatives part, my friends, you got to ask these questions. Does it solve the real problem? But do you know what really helped her the most? These ones, these validating questions, this one especially. Because if it's not in line with the Agile Manifesto values and principles, it's likely why are you choosing that one, right? So those that are against the grain don't choose. And this is what a lot of my students have done over the past number of years since I started training the Dixiv. The Dixiv has really helped them. Here's the final one. Final one. Final thing you got to do after implementing the alternative, verify. So V is for verify. Verify that it actually did work. And this is a final, very, very last. Verify the alternative worked. Now, this one needs a little bit more imagination, but you got to put yourself in the real world and say, if I did this, in the real world, would it satisfy my customer? Will this be a true solution or not helping at all? Let me give you a very quick example. Like on the exam, when it says a customer is requesting a change, you already know that this change request is not useful. What should you do? A, reject the change. B, consider it. If you reject the change, that's not the best option. Even if you say, well, I've done all my homework and I know it's not going to work. It's in PMI world, that's not the best answer because you're not satisfying the customer. You know what it said in the Agile Manifesto? Our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable product. So you got to follow all of these, my friends. And when you get to the verify, and if I did this in the real world, will it satisfy my customer? Will it move things forward? Or will I just be belaboring the point and not really doing anything at all? Is it a true solution? If the answer is yes, very likely that is your best answer. So let's go through it very quickly. D, define the problem. I, identify the root cause. G, generate alternatives in your head. And luckily, you got four. The PMI is giving you choose the best one. If it's choose two, choose the best, right? Implement the alternative and verify that it actually worked. This will help you with, I want to say, at least 80 to 90% of the questions you get on the PMP exam. Always make sure that you're not being presumptuous. Make sure you've truly identified the root cause. If you're able to identify the root cause and you're able to generate alternatives even without being given them, it's a good sign. But if you get a question like, how would I even solve this? Then you got to go into the implement and just use the PO method, right? Use the PO method, a combination of choose the best alternative by elimination, implement the alternative mentally, and verify. Well, this does this sound positive? You know what I did for my students? I gave them 40 possible, actually, it was 60 possible answers that you should never choose on the PMP exam. I still need to find that sheet. I had that sheet about 2 years ago and I lost it. So if any of you who is out there, I know Anne has got that sheet. So Anne, if you're watching and you've got that sheet, please share. But I shared it with them, and that's what Anne used, and that's what many other students of mine use. The things you shouldn't choose that are just bad answers on the PMP exam, and that will get you further ahead. On the PMP exam, apart from the choose one, you also have the drag and drop. Drag and drop. The drag and drop questions or the matching questions, whatever they're called, matching questions, you're going to have those. You're going to have choose multiples, right? And you can still use the Dixiv approach. But I actually have something that you can play with here. So let me find it for you. It is, let's see. I'll find some drag and drop questions that you can play with. Because I have a risk drag and drop. This should be fun for you to play with. Let's put this in here. So I will put this in the chat so that you can play with these 5 strategies. You got to escalate, avoid, transfer, mitigate, accept. And this just tests you on those as well as escalate, exploit, and so on. So I'll put this in the chat and you can go off and practice with it. That is one thing you can do towards your drag and drops. And that is just one of the many that we have. Let me see if I can find another one because I think we have some for process. Here we go. Okay, so I found a list of all of them. So if you go to our website, projectmanagementdoctor.com, this page right here, let me put it in the chat. So those of you who are watching on Instagram, that's part of it. Anosh and Boafo, thank you for joining. I hope you find this useful. So those are some of the things that you can use. And then this is a very useful one for you to practice drag and drop. So we got Myers-Briggs. The Myers-Briggs drag and drop is I don't think they're very big on Myers-Briggs anymore, but you just never can tell. You never can tell when these things will appear. So it doesn't hurt to play with it. What else? And the process drag and drop. This is just on the processes. So as opposed to me quizzing you tonight, you can actually just do these drag and drops. Play with them, submit. So I think it's got about 5 or so every time you take them. But this will give you a better idea of how the process is and the tools. So match the process to the tools. I think there's also match the process to, let's see what else we have here. Okay, process to output, stuff like that. You want to play with one? Close project or phase. What is the output of this? It's going to be this one, right? Output of the project chart is going to be this one. Output of the resource management plan. Plan resource management is going to be the resource management plan. Output of estimate activity resources. That's a tricky one. Output of developed team is going to be this. Now, I don't expect you to know these if you've not read PMBOK 6, but these are just fun to do. Estimate activity resources is going to be the RBS. So I should get it right. There we go. So you go have fun with these. See how they help you with your prep. But that's all I have for today, my friends. I hope you've enjoyed this journey with me. If you are not subscribed to the Praision channel, please subscribe. It helps the algorithm and it helps more people find these tutorials. Because I have a lot of people saying, Phil, if only I had knew you existed, my life would have been easier as I prepared for the PMP exam. So help me spread the word for people who are looking. For those of you who are looking for a 30-day plan to pass the exam, I know some folks are looking for a plan, and some folks are also looking for templates and tools. Well, this is your fortunate day because this right here is a page where you can download tons and tons of free project documents. Let's click on that. You see all these project documents, they are all here and you can download them. These project documents were originally put up by the CDC and then they took it down. But very fortunately, I had saved many of them over the years. I was a raving fan of what the CDC had. So the CDC documents, project charters, stakeholder registers, kickoff meetings, risk stuff, all of these I was, as if I knew. As if I knew. I saved them all. So you can go to this page, projectmanagementdoctor.com/30-day, a small DAY, and it'll bring you over here. Just click on a free sample of project documents. And honestly, these days with AI, why do you even need to waste your money on buying project documents? Plus, I've given you free documents here. Also, if you wanted some more guidance as far as the 35 tasks, well, I have some links here to the different, first of all, the content outline. I have a list of things that you should be studying, and each week I have what you should do week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4. And then if you come down here, there's a playlist of over 40 hours of additional study videos that you can use in your journey. I also have a podcast. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, go on down to study.pmradio.org, study.pmradio.org. This is a good website for you a good podcast for you to use to augment whatever you're doing in your PMP prep. And also go on down to pmradio.org because I have 2 podcasts for the PMP. I've been doing this for quite a bit, for a while. My 20th anniversary as a PMP is coming up in the next 23 days. 23 days. Then I'll be 20 years of PMP, which is just absolutely wild. So I'm really ecstatic about being a PMP. I've found lots of benefits, lots of value. It's definitely something you want to do if you're having second thoughts. Go ahead with it. And then over here, if you take a look at in red, click for a huge detailed free plan. Just click on that, and it's going to open up my immersion plan that will help guide some of you who are you're just floundering. And I don't blame you. It's not your fault. It's because the exam has too much stuff. It has too much stuff. But this will help you frame your thoughts, your intentions, and directions. And the funny thing is that the study guide itself is 64 pages. Isn't that crazy? This is a plan. This is just a 30-day plan. Was it 40-day plan? Which one did I call it? 30 or 40-day plan? I don't know. But let's see at the beginning. I've done so many. Okay, 30-day plan. 30-day plan. I've done so many of these over the years, but I begin to realize a lot of people seem to be in a hurry, and my intention of doing a 30-day plan was to help those of you who might be so desperately in a hurry and in a rush that you don't want to spend 45 days or 60 days. But if I was going to do this all over again, I would spend the time I did. So for my PMP exam, I spent 6 months. I spent 6 months. 6 months. Think about that. But look at me today. I know the entire set of 49 processes inside out. I know a lot of the stuff that's buried in other PMBOK guides because I truly read them. And I want to encourage those of you that are PMPs, the 8th edition is coming out. Have you left your commentaries? I think today is the last day. It's probably even expired. I think it expired on Eastern time. So you probably won't be able to leave any comments, but you can check if you got that message from PMI. So I'm very big on being a voice for the community, because the next edition, the 8th edition, when it comes out, it's not going to be as big as this, but it's going to have new stuff. I'm not a fan of a lot of the new stuff I've seen. I'm not. But that's for a different day. I hope you enjoy this, my friends. Thank you all very much. Let me share this final link with you so that you can download my 30-day plan. Those of you on Instagram, the Instagrammers, let me put this in here for you. All right, that's the free link. Download the plan. What else do I have here? And then the page itself, the 30-day page. I think I shared that with my YouTubers and the LinkedIn people. All right, there you go. All right, and Instagram people, here you go with that 30-day. All righty then. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I wish you all the very best. You take care, and honestly, get certified. It'll pay off in the long run, and you'll be glad you did.